everyone, my name is Chloe, and today I'm here to do my February Stats and Standouts. So if you've not seen one of these videos, what I do is I'm just talking about all my reading stats for the month of February because I have become a stats nerd. So I used to, prior to like 2023 maybe, I never tracked my reading anyway other than Goodreads. I kind of kept track of what I read on there. I have always loved to write reviews on there just so I remember books and specifics about them, but I never had a spreadsheet, never had any sort of stats. And now I think it was 2023, I created a spreadsheet and I've become a stats nerd. And then with the help of Storygraph, I have even more stats. And so let's talk about it. And then I'm going to talk about my 5 favorite books that I read. So in February, I read 37 books and DNF 2. And that's, let's see, 9,053 pages, which averages to 323 pages per day. However, I read 245 pages per book. Like that was the average length. So it's about 1 1/3 books per day. Let's see, 23 of those were novels, 12 were chapter books, and 2 were graphic novels. So 23 were novels and 14 were kind of quicker, younger reads. And then 21 were adult, 1 was young adult, and 15 were middle grade. 23 came from my shelf and 14 came from somewhere else. And so I always want to read more off my shelf than not. And that feels like a big win there. 17 were physical, 15 were on audio, and 5 were ebook, which 5 ebooks is huge for me. That's a lot. 13 I got from the library, 12 I used Libby, 5 were directly off my shelf, 4 were from Kindle Unlimited because I caved and joined that towards the end of the month. 2 were just already on my Kindle, and 1 was from Audible. It was already on my Audible. I don't have a subscription to Audible at this time, but I have. And so one of them was from Audible. So yes, I read, let's see, my genres, the way I track them. The first was cozy mystery. Now that was because I read a lot of Nancy Drew Clue Crew with my girls, which I call cozy mystery. 6 were nonfiction, 5 were contemporary, 5 were romance, 4 were historical, 1 was biblical fiction, and 1 was mystery thriller. So as always, genres all over the board. My Storygraph says my moods were lighthearted, mysterious, emotional, and informative in that order. Those are the top 4. There's 1,000 moods that were represented, but those had really big chunks. And then the pace of my books was really interesting. 41% were slow paced. 34% were medium paced and 25% were fast paced. And I will tell you guys my average star rating this month was 3.35. So I will say it was not a great month. And I'm wondering if it's because so many were slow paced. I'm wondering because I don't love that. I don't love that. So star ratings, obviously I had the 2 DNFs, 2 stars, 7 2.5 stars. And 2.5 stars is like, I barely got through this book. 6 3 stars, 10 3.5, 10 4 stars, 1 4.5, and 1 5. So like I said, average 3.35. So I'm going to go hand her off and then I will tell you about my favorites for the month. Okay, so like I said, a lot of the books that I read in February were due to my February book haul revisit. And I don't know, like those books have been sitting on my shelf for 2 years. And so the fact that I have not gone to pick them up indicates that maybe I'm just not that interested in them and maybe they aren't the greatest books. However, I have found some really good books from my book haul revisit. So I don't think it's that. I mean, it may be partially that, but I wonder too if part of the reason I didn't love the things that I read this month was because I had so many books. I had like 10 or 11 books on my book haul revisit plus other things in the month. And so I'm wondering if it was just like the pressure to read them. I don't know. I don't know what the case was, but for some reason I didn't love those. So I don't have a lot of fiction favorites to talk about. I have 2 fiction favorites that I'm going to talk about. One is Secrets of a Charmed Life by Susan Meisner. I love Susan Meisner so much. This is present day Oxford, England. A young American scholar is trying to pursue her vision of a perfect life. She interviews a woman named Isabel just when the elderly woman is about to give up secrets about the war she's kept for decades, including who she really is. What Kendra receives from Isabel is both a gift and a burden, one that will test her convictions and her heart. Then we get 1940s England, and I just really like this book. Susan Meisner does historical fiction in a way that nobody else does for me. Like, I have loved everything I've read from her, and so I really liked this book and would definitely recommend. The other one is kind of laughable. It is Knights and Rodanthe by Nicholas Sparks. So this is one that I read for Deck TBR-a-thon, and it is a short Nicholas Sparks about older people, well, not really older people. So it is about a woman who, her daughter has just gone through some really hard times. She's now a widow, and her daughter's just kind of checked out of life, and she's like wanting to relate to her daughter and say like, hey, I get it. And so she tells her this epic love story of her Knights and Rodanthe, because she was watching somebody's inn for them, and there's only one person because it was an off season, and they had like this whirlwind romance, and then he kind of ghosted her, and so we find out what happened there. And I really liked this story. Some people don't. I really do. I read another Nicholas Sparks that I didn't love, so I don't know why this one hit for me, but it did. So those are the two fictions that I would like say I would recommend out of all the ones that I read. Those are the two. But nonfiction, if you are a homeschooler, Teaching from Rest is A Homeschooler's Guide to Unshakable Peace by Sarah McKenzie. This is a tiny little thing, and I know a lot of people read it annually, if not more frequently, and it's just a good reminder that like it's okay. Your kids aren't going to be behind. You don't have to be a slave to the curriculum. The curriculum's a tool. The whole point in homeschooling is to give them life experiences and have a relationship with them, and how much more important that stuff is. And I really, as a type A person, I really need this reminder frequently, and so I really appreciated this. The other thing is Defiant Joy, and this is Taking Hold of Hope, Beauty, and Life in a Hurting World by Stacey Eldridge. So I don't know how much I loved this book because of the book versus the experience. I read this with Krista from Books and Jams for her Christian nonfiction. She does quarterly like read-alongs, and I just love this. It was also Jess from Pages and Grace, and I like talking with those women on Sundays and talking with everybody in the comments made this book so good. There were chapters in this book that were very, very convicting and parts that didn't apply, but overall I gave it 4 stars, and I would definitely recommend. And then I have 2 more nonfiction actually that I read, so I'm kind of breaking the rules and doing 6, but The Reading Promise by Alice Ozma is a nonfiction about a girl who, her and her dad at 9 years old, when she was 9 years old, they were like, let's try to read out loud together every day for 1,000 days. So not only do they do 1,000 days, they do it all the way until she goes to college, and they can't do it anymore. And they surpass a bunch of different hurdles, all things life comes at them, and they never quit the reading. And so it was really motivating to read, both with my kids, but more so independently. And I love the father-daughter story. And then, Last is You're More Than You've Been Told by Hosanna Wong. So she is a spoken word poet. So if you're going to read this book, I would highly suggest you listen to it. And it's just, you are more than you've been told. That you don't have to believe the lies. Replace it with God's truth about you. And there are things like overall listening to it was really comforting and felt really good. But there were a couple ways of thinking about things that have like permeated my brain and stayed there and taken up permanent residence there. And so I feel like if a book is memorable like that, it's got to be good. So a lot of nonfiction about just like being joyful and chill, because it has been a doozy of a month. We've had a really, really sick baby. We found mold. We found carpenter ants. It's been a February. And so having all these nonfictions was actually a really comforting, like, balm to my soul. And reading a bunch of mediocre fiction, a little less so. So we're going to hope that March is better. Middle grade March Mystery Madness, backlist readathon / use up all my Kindle Unlimited before I cancel it again. It's going to be a good month, right? Spring is springing. It's going to be great. So thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.